Okay, let's unpack this. Today we're diving into a topic that touches many lives, often with a mix of hope, confusion, maybe a little bit of heartbreak.
Yeah,
We're talking about the intricate, often kind of counterintuitive dance of trying to reattract an ex. It's a tricky one, it really is. And our listener provided some truly fascinating material. It's a mix of perspectives on relationships, attraction, deeply personal dynamics.
right.
So our mission here for you is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge, the key insights, and maybe offer a bit of a shortcut to understanding this complex challenge.
Indeed. And what's particularly fascinating, I think, about the material you shared is how it frames this whole challenge.
How so? Well, it's not just about a singular goal like I need to get this person back through, begging or trying to reason with them.
Yeah, that rarely works.
Exactly. Instead, it really positions it as an opportunity for profound self-understanding and then strategic re-engagement.
Okay, strategic re-engagement.
I like that. Yeah. So we'll be looking at the behaviors and the mindsets discussed within these sources that they argue significantly influence an ex's perspective.
Right.
And crucially, how you can cultivate qualities that genuinely foster reattraction. It's less about manipulation, really, and far more about becoming truly, undeniably desirable in your own right. Okay, so where do we start? Maybe with the ex's perspective, that seems like a good place.
Definitely. Because one of the maybe most uncomfortable but critical insights from these sources is understanding what might actually be going on in your ex's head after a breakup. The material suggests that an ex might consciously or maybe unconsciously be trying to move on faster than you are.
Right, that's a powerful point to start with, and it details some surprising, maybe even kind of cynical motivations behind that push.
Yeah. The sources explain that this drive often stems from a desire to avoid that really intense pain, feeling hurt, rejected, and left behind after a relationship ends.
Nobody likes feeling that way.
No. So to navigate that, the material claims some women might give an ex subtle hints, maybe even outright hope of reconciliation.
Like breadcrumbs, kind of.
Maybe stringing him along is the phrase they use, while sort of beneath the surface, they're actively or passively looking for a replacement.
Ouch, that's tough to hear.
It is. And this behavior, the sources describe it as potentially rooted in selfishness, revenge, or insecurity. They're words.
Wow, okay, but it's a tough pill to swallow, is it?
Yeah. But if you look at the examples they give, it starts to make a certain kind of, self-protective sense.
What do you mean?
Like they detail a scenario where a woman, maybe she's worried about her attractiveness after the breakup. Right, yeah, she might string him along just to buy herself time.
Time for what?
Time to find a new partner, to sort of ensure she comes out on top. Protecting her ego, her sense of attractiveness from the sting of it all.
It sounds like self-preservation in a very primal way.
And if we connect that to the broader picture presented in the material, it emphasizes a fundamental truth, according to them. If you want an ex to give you another chance, you absolutely must not give her the impression that she is somehow more attractive or more valuable than you are.
So it flips the power dynamic or tries to...
Exactly. Which leads us to a crucial question the sources are implicitly asking. How do you actively make her feel those positive feelings for you again? Remind her of your intrinsic value.
Right, and not by begging.
Definitely not. And the very clear advice woven throughout is against pressuring the ex. If you hear phrases like "don't pressure me" or "I need space" over and over, the sources are unanimous on this. Your approach needs to change fast.
So if pressuring pushes them away, what pulls them closer?
This must bring us to that core strategy, the sources champion. It does. The concept of becoming the prize, transforming yourself into someone inherently desirable.
This concept is deeply tied to what the sources call plate theory. Plate theory. Okay, explain that.
They're clear. It isn't about disrespecting anyone or like playing games in a malicious way. It's more about a fundamental shift in your internal perception and how you project yourself externally.
Right. The theory suggests that cultivating other prospects or genuinely having options in your life can greatly curb onitis.
That's a term they use. Yeah, it's their term for that intense, singular, often kind of needy focus on just one person.
So when you're no longer singularly fixated, you naturally appear more confident, more relaxed, and more desirable.
Think about it. Why are figures like rock stars, professional athletes, movie stars often seen as attractive?
It's because they prove they have options that other women will jealously compete for.
A fundamental part of achieving this, the sources highlight, is continuous self-improvement, both physically and mentally.
We're talking about ensuring you have the absolute best flattering pictures of yourself for any online presence.
Diligently working out, actively improving your looks and body.
Beyond just looking good, the sources really emphasize the power of good body language and good tonality.
It's to project a careless, relaxed vibe, you know? The opposite of needy.
Even a simple, genuine smile, the material notes, shows that you're an open, friendly, relaxed person.
The sources suggest that having genuine standards for your relationships, standards that include more than just superficial looks, will make you incredibly attractive.
And when you cultivate the ability to genuinely walk away from dates out of true conviction rather than tactical advantage.
The sources state your inner game will be like Heart of Lion.
How do you actually interact if or when you get a chance to re-engage with your ex?
They offer a pretty profound insight. Emotions run women's, not logic.
But what they mean, they argue, is that trying to logically convince someone to reconcile, it's often ineffective.
The goal instead is to connect with them emotionally, to allow their emotions to carry them away from their cultural bias, as they put it.
Instead, it's about skillfully creating an emotional experience, a feeling, something that can draw her back in, tapping into that raw, intuitive connection rather than getting into a debate. And part of creating that emotional experience involves consciously controlling the conversation's flow.
How do they suggest doing that? Well, the sources lay out what they call the 90-10 rule. 90-10, yeah.
Basically, you should expect to supply 90% of the conversational momentum. Keep it moving, so be prepared to lead the conversation.
Exactly, and their advice is to forget fluff. You know, those polite, surface-level questions like, how was your day?
Instead, go for sharing your values and putting her in the mood. They give a vivid example. If someone asks a fluff question like, do you know what time the gym closes?
The material suggests a better question would be, what kind of fun can we find after the gym closes? It shifts the dynamic immediately, from factual to suggestive.
Which naturally leads to another crucial piece of advice. Rather than solely trying to impress her, they suggest flipping the script and interviewing her for the job.
So when she attempts to qualify, maybe testing your interest or commitment, you're advised to brush off her attempts like you would dismiss a bratty little kid.
The posture to adopt is one of amused mastery of everyone around you. It's about conveying this sense of calm, confident superiority where you're not easily impressed.
And being direct is part of that, right? The material repeatedly warns against being unclear about your intentions, so no beating around the bush.
If you're asking someone out, state clear intentions. Don't try to play it safe by making it seem like just a friendly thing if it's meant to be romantic.
And this ties directly into what the sources call action-reaction dynamics. Basically, her reactions are, in large part, based on your actions.
If you demonstrate excessive interest or start working to get her, she'll likely react in a way that puts her in the position of power, where you're chasing.
Instead, men are advised to tease her validation frame. It means challenging her expectation of being constantly validated or put on a pedestal.
For example, by leading her while not showing attention interest initially, or maybe playfully pushing her away. It's exactly that push-pull dynamic that keeps her engaged and curious.
When it comes to online dating communication, the advice is consistently short, efficient messages aim squarely at getting a number and then meeting in person. Get offline quickly.
The ultimate objective isn't rationalizing, but fostering an emotional connection that naturally leads to meeting up and seeing where things go. Okay, that covers a lot on interaction. What about pitfalls, things to definitely avoid?
Yeah, let's talk pitfalls. The sources highlight some common ones.
Like what? One huge trap is seeking validation instead of genuinely seeking connection or a relationship.
If your primary goal is just to feel good about yourself through someone else's attention, this can actually hinder real success, makes you seem needy.
And this is particularly evident in the validation queen phenomenon they describe in online dating.
These are women who use online dating primarily just to validate their desirability.
Often not. It frequently leads to radio silence or ghosting once they've got enough attention or compliments.
And the consistent advice here is unequivocal to just move on.
Don't chase it, you can't control it, and it's a waste of your energy.
Another pitfall mentioned is hanging around too long, or trying to get in relation with her in a sort of non-committal friend zone kind of way.
Once you've made your move, it's often best to regroup and make concrete plans for the next step, rather than just lingering in that ambiguous territory. Now, the sources seem to get into some broader ideas too, right? About society and dynamics between men and women.
They introduce concepts like the feminine imperative, It's described as the totality of the framework that implicitly benefits the feminine.
So a framework benefiting women, that's how they frame it.
And this framework includes tools like ASD, which stands for Anti-Slut Defense.
This is claimed to be a mechanism women use to operate unhindered in her sexual selection.
It allows them to be flirtatious or engaging, but then strategically change her mind or pull back.
To maintain a virtuous or respectable image, basically giving them more control over their sexual choices and reputation.
So it's presented as a kind of social strategy. That's how the sources describe it.
And they explicitly state that men should be aware of these dynamics and plan their approach accordingly.
The sources also touch on what they call the culture war context.
Their perspective is that feminism won, and men now need to adapt to what they term a post-feminist reality.
Their argument is that men need to navigate this landscape strategically, making choices that are fundamentally in their own best interest.
It's presented as like the backdrop against which all these dating dynamics are playing out.
So that's some heavy context they bring in. It is.
And it really brings us back to our core mission here today. Right, getting back to the ex.
Exactly.
While the immediate goal might be how to get an ex back, the underlying principles and frameworks presented in these sources suggest a much more fundamental shift.
The shift in what?
In one's entire approach to attraction and relationships, really. It's ultimately about making yourself desirable, not just to that specific ex, but potentially to any woman. Through cultivating genuine confidence, creating real options in your life, and deeply understanding these sometimes uncomfortable dynamics they describe. So, okay, let's wrap this up. What does all of this mean for you, our listener? We've covered a lot.
Yeah, understanding your ex's potential post-breakup mindset, maybe some of those tougher motivations.
Right, the critical importance of building your own value, becoming the prize, having options.
The inner and outer work.
Exactly. Then mastering that emotional connection, the communication dynamics leading the interaction.
And avoiding those pitfalls like seeking validation or getting stuck.
Yeah, so while our deep dive was specifically looking through the lens of trying to reattract an ex, it's pretty clear, isn't it? Many of these insights are broadly applicable.
Absolutely.
To cultivating attraction and confidence in pretty much any relational dynamic you might encounter.
So maybe the focus on the ex is just the catalyst for bigger changes. That really raises an important final question for you to ponder, doesn't it?
Go on.
If becoming the prize and understanding these intricate dynamics is presented as key to reattraction, how might embracing these principles fundamentally change things?
Change what?
Not just your approach to a past relationship, maybe, but your entire future approach to connection, to self-worth, to personal growth, regardless of the ultimate outcome with that specific ex.
That's a really powerful thought to end on. It makes it about more than just one person.
Exactly. And remember, knowledge is most valuable when it's not just understood, but, truly applied.
There's always more to learn, always more to integrate into your life's journey.